Okay, we will start. My thanks to Chow and William, our faithful attendees. If you guys should take a class off or something, or maybe you don't want to start open Pandora's box. Hello to people online. It's voting day today. I hope everyone's going to take time to go and vote, unless you feel that you shouldn't or don't want to, in which case we all respect that too. But this year is a good year to vote. Let's see here. Looking up at what's coming ahead. So first of all, we extended the assignment, the web package assignment, until November 8th because today is election day. So we'll have a chance to take another look at that assignment if we can bear to. Next week we're on something different. So we're going to leave aside our creative, we're going to leave aside our reporting, our kind of news reporting, which we've carried from radio through TV through the web now. And we're going to work on a creative concept for a commercial, or a PSA, which comes around eventually on November 27th after Thanksgiving. The script for the commercial is due. So some people may breathe a sigh of relief at moving from fact-based reporting to something that's a little more creative and full of imagery. It would be a commercial or PSA. So we'll start in on discussing what goes into a creative concept, which is kind of a statement that you make at the start of a project for hire. We can do that, I guess, starting on Thursday. We'll also want to take a look at some of the web packages if people turn them in. And let's see. So looking ahead, we're going to be writing that PSA commercial, and then we're going to be working on a short screenplay formatted script, like for a webisode, something a few pages long, which would translate to a few minutes of screen time, not a whole kind of half hour or anything like that. So that'll give us a chance to learn about screenplay format and do something creative there too. So hopefully this will make a nice change of pace for everybody. So that's what's coming up. Chow, you don't have access to the syllabus by just normal means?
No?
It was cool.
Already there, so
All right, go for it. That's cool. I myself never copy anything that I can avoid copying. Right? Cool. So that's what's coming up next. This week we were covering the chapter on writing on the web, and it doesn't have much. It generalizes a fair bit based on the kind of advice we've already been giving for the web package last week. So we could look at it kind of quickly. And then we'll be moving on to the chapter on advertising next week. So we'll look at the assignment for the creative concept, and then we will be getting into some of the advertising techniques that are discussed in the textbook, basically. So that's what's coming up. Should be fun, I hope. Here's what's due on Thursday. And I noticed we've had a couple of submissions. Chow, would you mind if we discussed yours?
I don't know if I did it right.
Oh, now no better time than to take a look at it now. Well, let's see. We'll let you sit with that for a sec. Natalia, I see you put yours in. Would you? Can we look at? Can we look at your package? We'll see. We'll see what she says. Chow, what do you say? That's hers. Okay? Very courageous. Thank you. I'm really impressed by your courage. So let's have a look. And we'll see. So it's in two separate pieces?
Because I looked at the, on the canvas that Sam shows you how to do it.
Uh-huh.
It said you wanted blurb separate.
Separate. Perfect. Okay. All right. So remember, the first part of this is like about a 50-word blurb, which would appear on a home page to let the audience know what they're in for if they click on the story. So blurb, and your headline is grip tape art. And a new trend called grip tape art is growing immensely all over every social media website, allowing all kinds of creative artists like Kendra Obleton and Stephen Glekovich to have their artwork recognized greatly, exposing themselves to the art world for the purpose of expressing themselves in their own inspirational and original ways. All right, so we know that we're going to get a story on grip tape, and Kendra Obleton and Stephen Galekovich will be talked about at least. And I know you interviewed at least one of them.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay. I think it looks great. Grip tape art maybe is like a little generic as a headline. Maybe I might, put something like that. Grip tape art on the rise or something like that. But I like it.
New art form begins to stick on social media.
Oh, nice. A little wordplay.
Yeah.
I like that, William.
It's always fun with titles to
Yeah.
actually play around with some more interesting displays. It usually draws my attention as a reader. I tend to pull from articles that maybe not generating controversy, but if there's an interesting wordplay going on with it, it
Catches your attention.
yeah, it makes me want to read the article a little bit more.
Yeah.
Especially if the blurb informs me on what it's actually going to be about. Which I think this blurb does a great job of doing.
It's cool. Yeah. I would, because SEO focuses in on the blurb, try to think of all your words as potential kind of links or grabbers, basically grabbers of attention. So creative artists and their names, that's really high value as links, but allowing all kinds of, so try, especially in the blurb, try to just cut down the number of words so that every word that's in there as much as possible is a kind of word that people might be searching for or might be, so trend is great, grip tape art, of course, is absolutely important, and social media, creative artists, their names, inspirational probably, original. So think of it that way when you write it as well. That every word has potentially a rating in it. And this is mostly in the blurb, right? It's not the whole way through all your work, but in the blurb, because it rates highly in search engines, try to keep out the generic words and keep in the words that are that people might be searching for. Oh my God, I'm so bad today with all my web stuff. All right, here's the web package. Awesome. Let's download it and actually put it into it. Sorry. Cancel.
Blue cancel.
I'm just in internet's old fogeyism right now. Not sure what's up with this. There it is. So we're gonna, oh cool, lots of images and stuff. Nice. Okay, so
Yeah, the blurb is still there.
first off, that's cool. I love the picture too.
Yeah, that's my skateboard.
Nice. That's very cool. That's very nice. All right. Karen Obleton's grip tape art design on Chow's skateboard. Awesome. So there's a caption under there. That's great too. Caption your pictures. Fantastic. All right. So okay. So that's the blurb. That's what you're talking. I'm gonna go page down. And so now we're getting into the story here. Trey's grip tape art experience. Okay. Oh, so is this the web extra? The 150 words?
Yeah, I put 2 people because
Okay.
so it's going to show me.
Okay. Sounds cool. So we're looking at the extra. Kendra's profile image on Instagram. Okay. Now I zoomed in too much. Huh? Do you want to read it? Oh, you don't have your mic. I'll read it anyway because we weren't planning on doing it. Intro. Kendrea Obleton, a 25-year-old young artist in San Francisco from Oakland, has experience with all kinds of mediums in art. She decides to create her own grip tape art on August 2nd, 2018 for the purpose of motivation to create art again. Experience. I like, so here, these are the subheadings. You're breaking things up. You know, your paragraphs 2-3 sentences long. Excellent. Kendrea's finished product in grip tape art on August 2nd, 2018 was an art piece on a skateboard of Buttercup from a popular children's television show, The Powerpuff Girls. In order to begin creating art again, Kendrea finds a reason, goal, and purpose to do so, expressing herself artistically, discovering a passion and dream for career goals, and earning recognition through art. And there's one of those buttercups. And then process quotes. What is that last little bit about, Chow?
Process?
It says something here. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Okay, I know what I'm doing wrong. Jeez. Where are we here? Page up. My navigation. Process. Oops. Oh,
Just the 2 quotes I chose.
yeah. Kendrea tells us, I didn't really get seriously interested in grip tape art until July 30th. But before then, I watched YouTube videos.
You said don't.
Sorry?
You said don't include the part where it says for the first time, so.
Oh, okay. All right. You're very precise about dates here. The young artist then lets us know, learning how to create grip tape art has taken some time since I haven't created art in so long. And advice I would give is just try and do it. And then Steven's grip tape art experience. Steven's profile image. So intro, Steven Galikovich, 22 years old, young artist in Southern California from New Jersey, is a student artist, blogger, and skateboarder. Currently enrolled at Otis College of City Art and Design, majoring in graphic design. He creates all kinds of grip tape art on skateboards and hopes to work with major skateboard brands and design studios one day. Okay. Am I getting all of this, or yeah, there you go. Okay. All right, and now, so, wow, he does nice designs too. Every skateboard Steven rides on, he chooses to put time into creating designs on the grip tape for the purpose of feeling hyped. He creates all kinds of designs on the skateboard's grip
I
tape.
feel like I just repeated the sentence.
Which one?
Second sentence. For the first, like I repeated first sentence and just.
Ah, I see. Well, let's see. Every skateboard Steven rides on, he chooses to put time into creating designs on the grip tape for the purpose of feeling hyped. He creates all kinds of designs on the skateboard's grip tape because the process is fun, keeps him energetic and excited, which is a passion for him that also keeps him stress-free, not worrying about others' opinions and criticisms. Well, you know, I see what you mean, Chow. It doesn't reproduce it exactly, so it's not all that noticeable.
Okay.
But if you had him in his own words talking about feeling hyped, it might be better, you know, to use your kind of your objective paraphrase here to start with that, and then maybe conclude with him saying, "Yeah, I do it. You know, whenever I do it, I really feel hyped," or whatever he actually said.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So then it's not really a duplication, but rather a, you know, a kind of a
Creates more emphasis on what you were saying previously.
yes, and it's got more personality and oomph to it. You know? Yeah.
That makes sense.
Might be what I'd do there. Yeah. Process quotes. So I think these subheads could be a little more explanatory. Yeah.
Exciting or something?
Well, not exciting, but rather just like if I'm looking for process, I don't know what I'm going to see if I look for process quotes.
Oh.
But you know, if you wrote Steven's process or Steven's creative process or something like that, it'd be easier for me to understand what goes into that paragraph.
Or the header in his own words
Yeah, you could do that.
could be effective.
Yeah. Steven tells us, when I want to look down at my grip tape, I want to get psyched to go skate hard and not think about anything other than whatever ledge I want to frontside glide onto next. The 22-year-old artist then finally advises us, the important thing about customizing grip tape is having fun. Don't take yourself too serious and create something that you truly would love to look down at while you skate. Go crazy with it. Who cares? It's skateboarding and nobody tells you how to ride your board, let alone what to put on your grip tape. That's cool. That's got a lot of...
I wasn't so sure about the work extra.
You weren't so sure as what?
Work extra?
The web extra. Okay. William, any other thoughts on the story itself? I just want to see it maybe in chat if anybody is.
No, it seems really cool. Like I think providing more context to like the movement as a whole would be would like draw me in a little more, because right now it definitely reads as like two profiles about individuals that I think are interesting and I think that their art form is, but as far as providing as far as getting this message out to a broader audience that may not have an interest in skateboarding, you would want to relate that back to a bigger concept, because again, these individuals are doing something really cool, but your reader may not be aware of like the culture that they're inserting themselves into, and so providing context in your story, I think, would drive home the impact that these characters are having in what they're doing.
Yes, cool. Okay. Katerina has a comment for us. As for the article name, I disagree with William. If the name of the article misses the keywords and is vague, new art form explodes on social media, I will most likely skip on internet. It looks like a trap for ads. But I read it in a paper, newspaper, or magazine. I see, okay.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
I got it. Yeah, so you're willing to go deeper if you know that it's kind of, let's say, professionally generated material.
Yeah,
Interesting.
that's understandable.
Yeah. Cool. Still no word from Natalia about whether we can look at hers. So let's continue on with Chow's, but we're going to look at it again in preview. So here's the web extra, which should be.
I told the whole story instead.
Okay, well let's have a look. So another photo. That's nice, eye-catching. So teenager skateboarding and speeding up his pace. David Gonzalez, living in a doorless house in Colombia with a father who is into drugs and prostitution, receives a gift, a skateboard, which changes his life dramatically. When David was 12 years old, his mother let me quit school at 12 years old to only skate day and night. Nothing else mattered to me. Wow. He went through many rough patches. For example, outside of his home, David witnessed general violence and stabbings in the street. During his childhood, his mother had kicked his father out of the house, which caused David to put his entire focus on skateboarding. David, at age 18, moves to California, still insistent and inspired when it came to pursuing skateboarding as a career. His persistent dedication to skateboarding earned him the title Thrasher's 2012 Skater of the Year, which proves his dedication to skateboarding has paid off after everything he went through. Interesting. Okay, well, that fits the number of words. One thing I'm struck by is the present past here, where everything is in present tense. And that can be good as long as you kind of set it up in the beginning. So, you know, maybe a paragraph here, just like, and here's the point, you may not know what's happening with David Gonzalez anyway right now, right? I don't know. But maybe a paragraph in the real present tense before you're talking about his childhood or, you know, 2012, just to let us know sort of what is the present before we go back into the past, and then you can use the present past. It's something that a lot of people do.
Just the links to.
Yeah, but maybe just a paragraph, if you could ever find out what he was up to now, that would, you know, give it a kind of an up to the present moment, because the web tends to be kind of very much up to the present, but when we're searching for this stuff, it may not be easy to find somebody who's right up to the present. William, any reactions to this?
No, this is a nice piece. It brings light to a character that I may not have otherwise been aware of, and relates it back to like human struggle, which is easy for a reader to digest and become invested into.
Yeah.
And there's a bright side at the end, because being getting in magazines is a big deal, especially for in this particular industry. So it's really cool.
Cool. Yeah. And it sounds like you had such a tough upbringing that that really is a success story. So good choice. Good choice. So now interactive features. You went with links.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what exactly kind of link I was supposed to put.
These are all relevant. Oops.
Yeah, those are the links that I use.
Let's see if these will actually open in something else here. Ooh, Firefox. All right, cool. Okay, bunch of profiles there, so that's good to link back to the original material.
Yeah, everything is just.
And what's up on her Instagram page?
That's her other artwork.
Good.
That's Inktober.
Inktober.
Yeah, used to do a drawing every single day for the whole month of October.
That is a great idea. Wow, great project. Ah. Cool. Wow, beautiful. Great. So that tells us more about her. And then this one was, yeah, this is the grip tape character, right? Those images and stuff.
I wasn't sure what kind of links we were supposed to provide.
Well, the fact that they're active links and that they are related to your story, they're great. You know, if you went further than what you have already, you know, I would just, you know. And again, we did this type of search for, you know, to start off with anyway.
Yeah.
So, you know, you can, other links possible, you know, you can link to something like that for people who want to do it. But a number of really good things that I'm seeing here are, first of all, they're all live links. They're actual links. They're all connected to your story. And you did the short description of each link so we know why we're going there. So if you were to add more, you know, you would put like Etsy page with materials for, you know, grip tape art producers and such. So, and then you could go further. I mean, I think you know, part of what you're doing here is you're just trying to give a sense of context that clearly these two people are not the only ones doing the art. And so, you know, this character is, you know, so you got your friend who's doing it locally, you got another character who's into it as well. And so really any more searching that one would do would be trying to really, you know, establish a context for it. Trend, or who knows what you could come up with by searching for that. Oh, now I'm on Etsy. I'm searching for. Awesome. This is my day. Yeah, it could take a fair bit of looking, you know, to try to find some kind of news article or actual narrative treatment of nail art designs and trends and so on. So I bet you could find something somewhere. Somebody must have done a curated exhibition of grip tape art with skateboards and stuff in a gallery and wrote up about it, but it's probably a little bit difficult to find. I think you did great with what you got. I really think you did great with what you got. So you got all the pieces, definitely. You know, we got way more than one image. We've got the main body of the story. The web extra, we got the interactive links, and we had the blurb up here, right? So yeah, general comments would be, you know, try to be more specific with your subheads so that we know exactly what we're getting in them. I think William's idea of putting a little wordplay into the blurb might be fun, and my idea was that to remove you know, to make it as economical as possible so that every word is as close to a keyword as you can up there, you know. And I like the story. I mean, I like your choice of the Web Extra. Again, I think just a paragraph that might update us if it was ever possible. You never know. You know, like what's happening with David Gonzalez and what he's doing. Yeah, yeah. But nice job, and you know all the pieces are there. And so, how was it adapting this from your television package? How did you find that? You used what you had, right? Yeah. And was it? So I noticed that you turned your SOTs into quotes quite effectively, right? When you, where we would have said "in his own words," for instance. So here, there's a good chunk there based on those SOTs that turned into quotes. So that's great. And again, our recommendation here was that you might have done something of the same thing there. So it becomes kind of an interplay of the paraphrased stuff. Like this is paraphrased. This is actually really well paraphrased. Really, you know, he creates all kinds of designs on skateboards, grip tape because the process is fun and keeps him energetic and excited, which is a passion for him that also keeps him stress-free, not worrying about others' opinions and criticism. So all of that is paraphrased from, you know, the interview, and that's excellent, you know. And then you want to kind of alternate between paraphrase, and then it's a great time to have a quote from him about being hyped, and then back to the next. So it's really, yeah, kind of like that. And you do it pretty much, but you know, when you, for instance, if you dedicate an entire section primarily to quotes, you lose that opportunity to bounce back and forth between your words, his words, your words, his words. And of course, your words can always tell the story more effectively. His words will just provide, you know, character and enthusiasm. So, yeah. Good job. Good job. Awesome. I hope that helps people, you know, who are writing. And Katerina says, "Thank you for sharing." All right. Just Googling grip tape art. Awesome. Love it. Thank you for being there in chat and participating in this. I guess Natalia wants to save hers till next class, perhaps. So we'll let her do that. She can definitely do that. So yeah, thank you very much, Chow, for jumping in and doing that. Cool. Okay, we don't need the syllabus anymore. Looking through the chapter just to see what they can tell us that we don't know about writing on the web. And we, you know, we oriented our discussion of writing on the web very much towards, you know, the very specific thing of put yourself in the position of a reporter who does TV packages and has to repurpose them and put them on the web, right? I mean, everything that we talked about last week was dedicated towards that very narrow application of what we know about writing on the web. This one, you know, branches out a little wider, and I mean, it's good context, I guess, but it's not like we're going to write anything else using this, but it's in the book, so be important, you know. So actually, this morning in the BCST 100 class, we were talking about social media, and it's interesting that it comes up again here, the microblog Twitter, and you know, blogs themselves as great outlets for personal writing, for citizen journalism, for you know, your passions, your interests, and even your darker side, it seems. So yeah, let's see here. Learning objectives, reasons to include links within a piece of web copy. So that's interesting. Discussing positive, negative aspects of reader comments and potential disasters associated with social media and the ways in which you can avoid them. Ooh, okay, okay. Just top line, what's your opinion about why we should include links within a piece of web copy? What makes sense? Why did we do it? Why did you do it in your story, for instance, apart from me having asked you to do it?
In case you want to learn more about it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So it lets your lets your reader follow their own interests further. Yeah. William, any other ideas why you might include web links in a story?
What was the thing that we talked about like really early this semester about citing like where you pull information from?
Okay, attribution.
Yeah,
right?
attribution. That's it. Yeah, like when like in specifically in Zhao's second piece about
Gonzalez,
yeah.
with a childhood in Colombia.
No. The male.
Yeah, I think
Character.
Stephen was his first name.
Yes, Stephen. So I knew it was an S.
Yeah.
So her story on Stephen was she cited a link for reference there, and when we pulled that up, there was this huge article that covered probably a lot of stuff about his process, about how he did it, and probably a lot about the culture itself. And so just like when you collect data from like a Wikipedia page and you cite it in your bibliography in an essay, you want to do the same thing here.
Yeah, yeah, and this is a way to do it in an interactive way, which is interesting for your audience because you're not, writing an academic paper. But yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a great point. Another thing, I remember you yourself may have made this point regarding the NBC Investigates story, where they link to original documents. I think you said that provides credibility as well as attribution. So that's another part of it for sure. Attribution's super important. Also credibility. People can actually see those documents that you're discussing, so they know they exist, and they can also make their own opinion about them if they care to, And in some cases, if it was the actual tweets of FBI agents who were, dissing Donald Trump, and it turned into some gigantic national scandal, I would want to see the actual text, so that I could have my own opinion about it, because you hear so much about stuff, and sometimes you never even see the source documents or the actual stuff that is the source of the controversy. So it's a good thing to be able to see that stuff, So yeah, great point. Well, let's see a little bit more what they say. And so no restrictions on the web. It's true. You can take as long as you want, and you're kind of deciding when enough is enough. So it's a double-edged sword. Constraints sometimes help you be creative, and when those are gone, it's like, oh no, what do we do? Shovelware. Yeah, William?
Do you feel that web writing is the one that most requires an outside editor to like scale what you're working on?
Oh, that's a good question. I think people who write on the web very rarely have that type of resource. Yeah. And
do you think that is a hindrance to their content at times?
It could be. I have a recording. It's something I wanted to share with you guys, and you're just reminding me. But one of our students from a few semesters back, Lisa, had a really tough experience writing on the web that I did want to share. So I could maybe dig it up, or if I can't, if it's not in this new version of Canvas, I can relate it a bit. But well, what's your feeling? Like when you read something on the web, do you feel like, oh damn, I wish this was edited because it's like totally bloated, or?
Well, I think that it definitely like depends on the content generator, because like I can go to like off the beaten road blogs where people over articulate themselves and like go off on tangents that are unrelated to the central topic or whatever, and then I go to something that's that comes from a very controlled environment where an editor did have their hands all over this content, and it's clean and concise, but it also seems very fabricated.
I got it. Yeah. Less like personal expression, more like, like news
reporting.
News reporting. Yeah. That's a really good point. I mean, I think that's a fair contrast to make between, you know, something that's really personal and talks a lot but wanders off topic sometimes, and then something hyper-focused and kind of professionally edited. That's a good point. And, you know, personally, I like both types of things like that.
Yeah, for completely different reasons.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's just, and I mean, the other thing I find is I may go to the internet for, you know, articles in Medium. I don't know, I'd love to hear where you guys, you know, if there are any actual web brands that you're drawn to. I go to Vulture, I go to Vox. I mean, I go to a lot of sort of web publications that do have an editorial structure in place. And, you know, the people who I find hilarious are typically, for me, on Facebook. I mean, partly my age or whatever, but so I don't see them blogging much anymore. I see them doing like hilarious 500-word Facebook posts or something. Does that make sense to you guys, or? Yeah. Like this whole blogger phenomenon, which started on the internet, seems to me have, for the personal point of view, I find it a lot easier to find and track that in Facebook, you know, or whatever. I don't know, just an idea. One of my favorite bloggers was actually a professor of mine when I was in school, and I just pulled it up to show you what I just, you know, wanted to make a big recommendation this is not the guy, this is just a picture of him. I mean, does he actually have a picture of Grant? So this was one of my university, there he is. He was one of my university professors who was like, I was in a master's program, and he was hired for, you know, as a lecturer, which is pretty rare in that type of program. And he had written a book called Big Hair, which was like a 250-page book about the meanings of like hairstyles and stuff, and like really big hair and stuff. And he, it was a great book, and he was like one of the most inspiring teachers I ever had. And of course, he quit academia. He was sort of always half into it, half out of it. And he went as a curator at the, excuse me, the Royal Ontario Museum, which was in Ontario, it's in Ottawa, I think. Anyhow, so he did, that was it, Big Hair, Transformations, Identity Construction in Contemporary Culture. So he's had this blog for 15 years. And what's interesting, he left the museum job, and he's kind of like a consultant. He goes to advertising agencies, and he does presentations about popular culture.
Yeah, looking at some of his credits are really interesting.
It's so totally unconventional for an academic, and like how to read a T-shirt. I once ripped off one of his things about LeBron James, and kind of multiple identities. It was fun. So he's just a super interesting character. He does these things that he calls culture camps, which are week-long, like 5-day-long seminars where he just leads people through. So he does these case studies. He's an anthropologist, which is very cool. I mean, so instead of going out and studying people in the bush, he studies North American pop culture, and he offers these different boot camps, basically. For instance, ethnography is something that that anthropologists do. Like they go to a culture, in rural culture in Mexico or something, and spend a year living in a village and talk about social relationships. Well, there's a particular, there's an actual method. So he teaches it, but to people who want to, spend time in a company or in a subculture. Even like grip tape art, Grant would be all over it. But he would be like, so what are some of his latest things? If we go home, I saw one just up here recently. So there's how to read a T-shirt. And then further down, our podcast, The Wasteland. So another thing is he's incredibly entertainingly opinionated about stuff that I'm always waving a flag for this or that, and he's like, what? What is this? So he's pretty cool.
Have you read that particular article?
Not yet. No, I haven't dropped in on his blog in like a year and a half or so.
That seems really interesting to me because, yeah, I love podcasts, but I could totally see what kind of argument he would create for that. Yeah.
There's, I mean, I think we base our opinion on like some of the very best podcasts that are out there. But when you dig lower, there's a lot of like just, crappy stuff.
Yeah, but it's also, I think, what we were talking about in the early times of radio and television, where it's a wasteland in the sense that nothing's being gained from the content that's being produced in that format. Like, a lot of it is entertainment based, a lot of it, some of it is educational and conversational, but for the most part, like, the actual, like, improvement of society, like, I don't know what the impact podcast is actually having on the culture right now.
That would be an interesting topic for a term paper in the other class, actually. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because you could make the argument like radio links everybody up, old school radio links everybody up in very important ways, and it has emergency functions and stuff. If we're all off in our own little podcast bubbles, right? Not listening to each other, not really aware of what's going on. It's true that, maybe that is like, that's how I'm reading what you were saying anyway about, about some of the, just socially useless aspects of podcasts. Mm-hmm. It's interesting.
Yeah, like I probably ingest a solid like 60 hours worth of podcasts in a week. like I really enjoy them, but a lot of them don't net me anything at the end of the day. Yeah. As far as like learning. Occasionally I do learn things, but it's not like in a traditional like scholastic sense. I'm not being educated on something. Like, I learn about something as a conversation's happening. But a lot of the subject matter is based off of entertainment.
Yeah.
And so like
kind of like discussing the latest movies that came out.
Yeah,
or that
yeah,
kind of,
yeah.
And I love those things, but it's true. A lot of them are just, why don't I go see the movie?
or like, even like, why does this matter even like remotely when there are like crazy things going on that
right.
Well,
I must confess, I unplugged from the crazy things. Like after the assault on the synagogue, I just, I've had enough of the midterm. I've had enough of the president. I've had enough of the crazies. I'm going to listen to BBC, discussions of movies or something. Like, it has nothing to do with reality.
Yeah.
But I understand what you mean.
And that escape, I think, is super important. But like I was saying earlier, it creates this perspective of a wasteland. Like, people for the longest thought that it was impossible for you to learn from the television because all it could possibly do was make you stupider, because there's no like positive content being produced on it. So they made like changes for that, and I see the same projection happening in the way of podcasts, where they eventually take a huge shift where there are hard like educational podcasts that, just like we watch YouTube videos here in class, a homework assignment may be a podcast someday. But I think that there's a lot of like conversation for the sake of conversation happening in that avenue.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And I do feel that sometimes, I'm listening to the cream of the crop, so it is good. But every once in a while, I'll try something new, and I'll realize, oh, this is like a group of people who do this in their basement, and they crank out like a dozen every day or something, and you can literally hear them like changing the seats and like, getting settled in to do their next, recap of God knows what, Law and Order, Part 25. Well, I mean, it's interesting just bringing this to bring it back to Grant.
Yeah.
What I find about, we talked about kind of personal and opinionated blogs, and to me, this is so much the opposite. This is somebody with a very unique skill set and point of view who basically, I mean, he does this, I know, for the ability to put his ideas out there, and he has a lot of people who read him and get back to him and interact with him, and eventually he'll, every few years it'll wind up in a book, all of this thinking or something like that. And in the meantime, it really keeps him current and keeps the conversation going in an amazing way for these culture camps and all the other stuff that he's doing and thinking, So he's, to me, based on his work, I did start a blog at some point and I gave it up just for not being creative enough, not being dedicated enough, not, putting enough into it. But, give it up for Grant. He's been doing it for 15 years. So I just wanted to put that out there as like, wow, there's still some really useful and amazing and original stuff in the blog world. I notice he publishes simultaneously to Medium. So I have a feeling he realizes that he needs to be in a bunch of different places. Whoa. Anyway, there's a big plug for Grant, but he always really inspired me. So Culture By, and then Grant McCracken. So, coming back to our slides, how exciting. I love the concept shovelware, nonetheless. Shovelware, the idea of somebody with a shovel just shoveling shit, And so shovelware is the term that is used, journalists talking about just shoveling your TV package onto the web without adapting it or conforming it to what works best on the web. So it says avoid shovelware, focus on telling a story in an audience-centric way. So shoveling it would just be like taking piles of quotes and piles of original documents and just like throwing them up there without actually writing a story that is engaging. And again, for us, you could take your TV package and within 5 minutes turn it into a story. It just wouldn't be great. So the more you can put into actually writing it up in a narrative form, the better. Tell the story with multiple elements. That's the amazing thing about the web. Audio, video, graphics, photography. And that's a great thing about being in the BIMA department where, you learn, all that you need to do. I mean, I would venture to say you could do all right just with BCST 119, in the sense that you learn how to resize and crop a photograph and filter it or do whatever is necessary, prepare it for web publication. Graphics, a number of classes gets you really into the multimedia zone. And yeah, it's pretty awesome. The web as a publishing tool. I'm just thinking about HTML5 interactive stories, New York. I mean, let's see where we come up with, but there is definitely, search that way. Fiction games, tagged interactive stories. So HTML5 is the latest version of hypertext markup language. I mean, we all talked about that. If we scroll down on this story, watch what happens. We zoom in. It's like basically live video. We move in on this screen. And we move into a textual environment. So I'm just keeping the scroll button down. So as we get here, we've got animated graphics. We're going to get videos that activate themselves, podcast links that become available. So there's a lot going on. And all of this is thanks to HTML5. Which can do this. Is this New York? Okay, similar thing. HTML5. I'm just gonna scroll down. And that runs up like that. And as we scroll, so she activates, and now we can hear her video.
I had no ability to control what was happening to me. I was being tossed over and over and over. It was like being in a washing machine. I didn't know which way was up. I didn't know which way was down. I couldn't see anything. There were times when I couldn't breathe because there was so much snow, and it was just like void of air. I definitely thought that after being caught in it for a little while, holy moly, this may be the end. This is it. Are you serious? This is really the way I'm going to die?
So she made it out, but some people in her group did not. And so then the story, it backtracks and it starts, talking about, it sets the scene and it talks about, how some of them on that day weren't feeling like it was a good day to go out and other people were kind of pushing them and stuff. So, it's a whole kind of in-depth unpacking of all of everything that went into, this awful traumatic event, right? And so again, this is like HTML. It can trigger, it can activate certain stuff. And
Yeah, who would put this together? Like not necessarily the writing, but is it like a coder?
Yeah, yeah. So apparently you have to, for a story like this, I read, you have to count in about an extra $3,000 to have it encoded in this way. Mm-hmm. So you have all the basic print reporting that are done, and then you need to count in someone who can code, for all of these super cool things. And
Yeah, like scrolling back up. There.
Back up? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there were these side panels. Those are survivors or victims. Yeah.
Well, she's a survivor, pretty sure, because we saw her.
Okay.
And
But these are people that are involved in the story that we're reading about.
yeah,
That's cool.
Yeah.
There's a little profile picture right there on the side with a little bit of details on each of them. That's neat.
yeah, and so these trigger slideshows, although it's not working for me, whether it's a question of my browser or something.
Uh huh.
But and then yeah, this is pretty. To me, this blows me away. This guy basically scroll down, and I'm in the midst of an animation and stuff. So yeah, and this is it came out in several parts. So again, but it's the same kinds of techniques. So these are a couple of years old too. There may be even more exciting examples of this. I haven't had time to really dig into it more, but these are what's up with this? Oh, okay. So basically showing us
visual diagram of how an avalanche.
builds up, like how a ton of snow gets basically trapped temporarily and then lets go. Ay, ay, ay. I swear, I could spend, every night of the week, like basically lost in this type of stuff.
Yeah.
And
It's
then,
really cool.
what does it do for your life eventually, though, William? Is a good question. Oh no, I knocked out chat. Okay, let me just bring back chat here. Maybe someone other than us three with something to say. Links for further reading is a powerful tool. It can be used in a deceptive way. Think of fake news and all the fake websites that were linked together. Ah, interesting. Ah, Katrina, you got some great ideas. Yeah, okay, so that's a good point to links as well. And you'll find that in just about everything. Like the Times will do that pretty often. I guess not in these stories, but any article in here, oh my God, I'm getting too close to reality for comfort. But as you get down to the bottom, you will always have related coverage.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another good reason for links. So that's a really good point. Yeah. And it's true you can mislead with that stuff for sure. So we were moving through a little bit more on these. What am I doing? Just PowerPoint, right? So all of it can be incorporated on the web, which is lovely. Write in easy to use pieces. So, we wrote in 2 and 3 sentence paragraphs, and then we broke it into subsections, and that's important. Introduce the topic for your piece in a few short sentences, and then offer your readers links to the perspectives of these 3 sources. Hang on a second. In a few short sentences. Constant updates. People expect the web to be current. Blogging. Blogging is a way to reach an active end. Yeah, so that's a good point. There's a lot of organizations that'll start a blog and have people either rotate through the personnel or just one person handles the blog. And sometimes they give it to interns, which probably is a mistake. But yeah. So that's, you've already seen my grant thing. Don't blog just to blog. Come up with a reason to blog. Maintain a steady stream of content. So, you know, I mean, to me, that's, again, the Grant McCracken, you know, is a great example of just providing always, no matter how niche-y it is, it's always very valuable and very considered writing. But of course, most of us, I would say, don't have all that time necessary to do that. That's important. Focus on audience interests. Think about a small yet interesting area of information that would matter to your readers. And you have a ready-made blog topic. You know, we talked about this morning, I don't know, combining classes maybe in a way that's not the best. But Glam Media shut down, really? Mode Media used to be worth $1 billion. Well, in the early days of blogging, there were tons of tiny little blogs that identified niches, such as was just advised on the slide. And as, you know, the blogging space matured and there were other, you know, Twitter, so you can microblog if you want, or as we said, some of the more personal blogs moved over into social media, which was just seemed to, you know, connect the audience up a little bit better. But in terms of, you know, kind of commercial blogs that were oriented towards different product verticals, San Francisco, there was a company in South San Francisco called Glam Media that changed its name to Mode Media. And what they specialized in doing was gathering together the most popular blogs about particular topics such as, you know, sporting goods or cars or makeup or fashion accessories and stuff. So they call these verticals where, you know, basically sort of the broad categories of marketing. And of course, partway in a vertical, there's always going to be advertising dollars there. So what they would do is they would bind together like literally 100 of the most popular blogs about, you know, women's fashion accessories. And then they would sell advertising through all of those individual blogs. So it was, you know, an ad network basically. But as you can see, at one point it had $1 billion valuation. So it would be real interesting to find out exactly why it collapsed. I thought it was a pretty solid business. Perhaps, well, let's say no more until we actually read about it and find out. But you know, I hear so much complaining nowadays about how, oh, Facebook changed their algorithm or YouTube changed their algorithm, and all of a sudden my audience fell by 20% or something like that. And it sounds like, you know, whereas the internet, you could start a blog and you could start several blogs or web pages and so on and so forth, and you could try to build your traffic there. I guess Google search basically had an equally powerful effect on, you know, bringing people to your site, and adjustments in the search algorithm could probably ruin you as well. But for those who are, you know, partnering with Facebook or something like that, where literally there's nothing outside of Facebook, everything they do depends on Facebook. It just seems to me it's a much more of a kind of a risky situation. You know, you don't have that much agency. You can't unplug from Facebook and bring your audience somewhere else. You just can't. Another early blog of the political type, which I try to stay away from now because I'm trying to stay away from politics until all this blows over. Talking Points Memo was one of the early political blogs that really took off, and Steven Spielberg invested in it. There was a lot of investment at some point in that. And there's been some interesting discussions here. For instance, this post, basically talking about how it's very, very difficult to make a living with a blog selling advertising anymore. What this site and many others are doing, you notice the Join Prime button. Basically, sites that used to sustain themselves with advertising are now trying to get subscribers by offering them premium content that you can't get other than through subscriptions, just because it seems like the ability to support yourself through just selling advertising on the site is drying up. As you say here, I mean, you could maybe dispute their numbers and stuff, but it's pretty interesting. Analysis of the internet, the IAB numbers showing that 99% of the growth of the digital ad market over the previous 2 years had gone to 2 companies, Google and Facebook. So basically, everybody else is starting to work for Google and Facebook, unless they've got subscribers and stuff. So it's really interesting. Anyway, all of that is probably, we're talking about supplying the content, and they are talking about making money off of it. Monetizing, that's what we want to know, monetizing. Let me just check. I actually find Lisa, is she in here anywhere? Nowhere. Okay. Well, I'll just finally relate to you Lisa's experience, who was a student in this class a couple of years ago. And I did an audio interview with her that I put on a podcast and stuff, but I don't have it. I don't have the link right now. Basically, she has a journalism degree from San Francisco State. So she's got a 4-year college journalism degree. She wrote freelance for the Chronicle, for a bunch of other publications. And it's been hard, to be a print journalist right now. And she got a job working on a blog, an energy blog, or an online publication. Anyway, it wasn't a blog, it was an online publication where her job was to make blog posts, and she was paid about $50 a post, which is apparently a pretty common rate. So, to make it really worth her while, she had to shoot for, close to 10 posts a day. And she said the tough thing was she's not an expert on energy. So she's obviously sitting at her desk, combing the web for information that she can turn into blog posts, and doing this day after day without an editor really supervising her. There was a titular editor who wasn't doing their job. That person quit, and a new person came on and looked at what she did, and she said, well, this is total plagiarism. You've got to stop this. Because none of this is, you're not putting, none of this is original reporting and stuff. And so what had been fine like in the weeks before was now not fine. And in addition, they left some of her highest traffic stories, they left them up, and they put, a disclaimer at the bottom, which is, saying this article may be plagiarism, basically. So she's got her name on it, and she's this basically up on the web. It's just terrible for her, her reputation. So her warning was, always, stringently respect attribution guidelines, even if no one at the publication seems to care. Protect yourself by citing your sources and stuff.
Where was she, or how was she feeling to do that?
She had been trained to basically to say that everything I'm doing at this job is bullshit. She'd been trained as a reporter for the Chronicle, and the Chronicle does not go and, scrape and redo other people's stories, basically. But a lot of web publication does.
Uh-huh.
And so she was kind of like in a situation where this whole thing is wrong, but I'm being paid to do this, and everybody around me seems to say it's right, and this is the new way of doing stuff in this type of publication, so I guess I should do it. But then, you know, the ultimate irony is it comes back and you know, they make a public spectacle out of somebody who definitely knew better. But it was just like the whole situation was like, I got to keep my job. I got to produce this enormous amount. And as she was saying, she herself didn't know the field well enough to be able to paraphrase, you know, effectively, to get it far enough away from the original that no one would say this is plagiarism. You know? So because she didn't really understand sometimes what she was talking about, so she would copy sections and stuff. And I mean, this is a person with a lot of experience, you know, and so it was really unfortunate. It was really unfortunate. But what she said is, you know, don't trust even an editor to, you know, make this call for you. Just avoid plagiarism, you know, by attributing, and you know, to hell with it. Lose your job if you have to. Well, there you go. That's the end of the day. Ciao. Thank you for hanging in there and sharing your story with us. It was a great example to everybody who is, you know, probably finishing it up for Thursday. All right. Cool. Thanks, guys. See you Thursday. If you haven't voted, consider doing it.